right, everybody, welcome back to Not a Rockstar with Corey Evans. I am your host, Corey Evans, and it is Monday, October 28th, which means it's Halloween week. It also means we are in the middle of the World Series right now. So I had to think about how I wanted to play this today. Did I want to go more of the Halloween route or more of the baseball route? And it was tough. I narrowed down my potential guests for today to two people. Jamie Lee Curtis from the original Halloween movie, and my friend Josh Stewart, who used to pitch for the Chicago White Sox. And after, honestly, very little deliberation, I decided that Josh is a lot cooler than Jamie Lee Curtis. So Josh is going to be my guest today, and he is going to be telling us all about his experiences coming up through the ranks, playing baseball as a young kid, playing baseball in high school, and then eventually college. And then he'll talk a little bit about getting drafted by the Chicago White Sox, going through their single A, double A, triple A system, and eventually getting called up to play in the big league. So it's going to be a great episode today. Make sure you guys hang around to the end because Josh has some great stories, not only about playing baseball, but his current career in healthcare, and also the point in time where he went and lived in Japan and pitched for a Japanese baseball franchise. So great episode. Without further ado, guys, let me introduce you to my friend, Mr. Josh Stewart. Who do you want to win the World Series?
Honestly, it's the two worst choices that you could probably have. If I had to pick, I think it would be cool to see the Dodgers win, but it's kind of like, rock in a hard place. They're the two, most storied franchises in baseball, and the two that spend the most money. So it's kind of like, the two most storied could also be the two most hated at points and will. So that's the way I see it. How about yourself?
I don't really care, man. I saw this guy. I know he was like, basketball is officially started for me now. Yeah. Basketball season. That was the one scenario I did not want, was LA versus New York. I could have found somebody to root for in any other scenario. Well, if it would have been the Mets and the Yankees, that would have been tough on me too. I don't know who I would have gone for. Probably the Yankees, honestly.
Because you hate the Mets so much, being a Braves guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have, just paying attention from the start. Obviously, I wanted the Braves because I know you root for them too, but I would have liked to see the Tigers do something with it, just because they, they're all very good professional baseball players, but a group of nobodies compared to some of these other teams. I think their payroll was like terrible, and they made this huge run like late in the year to like even be in the playoffs. So I was pulling for them, but I forget who it was that beat them. Maybe Cleveland beat them in the
I think so,
in the first round. But yeah, I don't care. I think Shohei is really good for the game. He is phenomenal. It's amazing that he's so talented, and I think it would be good for baseball just around the world, honestly, if the Dodgers were to win. But it's one of those things too. Like, baseball is one of those variable sports where it's, even if you were trying to rig it or fix it or something, like, it would be hard to do because the ball might hit, bounce the wrong way or something might happen. But it's crazy that you've got Shohei, who is, the game's biggest star by far, and he's in the World Series now too. So it's, it almost feels scripted, even though I know it can't be. But it's just, if I had to root, I'd root for them, but I don't really care.
Yeah, I'd probably pick the Dodgers out of those two for that reason. And then the fact that, like, Ohtani was an all-star level pitcher.
Yeah.
And probably a top 10 batter in baseball, top 5. And then the first year that he doesn't have to think about pitching, he steals 50 bases and hits 50 home runs. More, actually. I don't remember the exact number, but more than 50 stolen bases and more than 50 home runs. And that's never been done. So the first year he doesn't have to think about pitching. He does something no one's ever done as a batter before.
Absolutely insane. And I know, it's easy to, sit and watch baseball on TV, and when they're all good, you don't realize how difficult it is. But just being a pitcher alone is difficult in that league, and he is, a star at both, and it's amazing. And I think in one game he got what was that one phenomenal game he had where he had all the stolen bases and RBIs and
Oh yeah, like 10 RBI or something.
yeah, and several stolen bases, 10 RBIs, and
6 for 6, I think. yeah.
He's on another level, which it's amazing to see. You know, I mean, he seems like a good guy too. He seems like a, you know, and I know that obviously I don't know him, but you know, he gives all the right answers, and he seems like he's just having a lot of joy playing the game, and you know, it's fun to see. So
I do have to tell you this before we get into your career. I got to tell you this story real fast.
Yeah.
So 2 years ago, Sam and I went down to Atlanta to see the Braves play the Angels.
Yeah.
And if I make a trip to watch the Braves play, I always try to either be at their home opener or catch them playing another team with somebody I really want to see. So, you know, Ohtani was going to be in town, so I really wanted to see him. And the section we were sitting in, there was like tons of Asian people, like tons, bro. So like there was a group of, I mean, I'm going to guess Japanese guys like sitting beside us, and not a word of English was spoken, like during all the warm-ups. And like there was tons of Japanese media watching him do all of his warm-ups. So right before they did like the Star Spangled Banner, I think they might have even had like the Pledge of Allegiance or something.
Right.
And again, these guys are not speaking English whatsoever. And so they announced like, we're now going to have someone recite the Pledge of Allegiance or whatever. And one of the Japanese guys asked the other guy, like, what'd they just say? And he goes, Pledge of Allegiance. And bro, they all stood up and put their hand over their heart and recited it like proudly.
Wow.
Like out loud, like full-throated, like. And Sam and I both got chills, and we talked about it afterwards. I'm like, dude, have you ever been more proud to be an American than what you just saw? And then from what I can gather, they were actually Braves fans, because they would cheer every time something cool happened for the Braves. But then every time Ohtani would come up, they would get like real excited too. So I'm like, man, baseball brings people together.
Yeah.
Like, I was so proud.
That is really cool.
To be, just like an American, but also a Braves fan and a baseball fan.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is what it's all about, man.
Yeah, that is really cool. And I know, you know, like you said, you had a story to tell and talk about my career. A small part of my short career, I spent in Japan, so I got to play over there. So it was really cool, like seeing that culture and seeing how they interact during the games and stuff too. So it was towards the end of my career. I spent half a summer over there playing, and it was on another level too. Just the changes and like how they approach the game and how they just how they interact with each other and the fans, and like the fans, like, I mean, they are that country over there. I mean, they will, shut down everything when baseball's playing. Like, I think they have let's just say they have 20 teams. All 10 games are on national TV. Everybody's watching. Everybody's at the games. They're all sold out, and it's a party in the stands the whole time. And I mean, it's insane how much they love the sport over there. So, like, tying all that back, like, it's cool to see someone like, Shohei Ohtani over here. And he's not the only one. Like Ichiro, who was the left-handed guy for the Yankees? Hideki Matsui. I mean, there's other guys too, but like, it's cool seeing a lot of them have success over here, because, I mean, the level of competition over there is really good, and I think them sending their guys over here and having a lot of success proves that. But they approach the game a different way, and it's interesting.
Yeah, we got to come back to that actually, because I have several questions. I'm going to do what we call coming in hot.
Yeah, okay.
So my first question related to your career is going to be the one I think might be the toughest to answer or the most interesting.
All right, let's do it.
What is the worst fan interaction you ever had? Like a heckler, or just anyone you had to deal with, or a group of fans? Or is there a town that you hated pitching in? Like, what do you got for me?
That is really good. That's tough. And honestly, one of the worst experiences I had was in single A on my way up to the big leagues. Some single A stadiums, you'll have like 50 people at the game or something, and like in some small town. And the Fort Wayne Wizards, I was playing in Burlington, Iowa, they would have this guy that traveled with them everywhere. and this is before like, you know, Facebook and Twitter and everything. You know, I played like in like, you know, late 90s, early 2000s. And he would travel with them everywhere they went, and it seems like he did research on you, and like, it was some old man that just loved the Fort Wayne Wizards there. And so he would, you know, you're sitting there trying to pitch or hit or whatever, and he's yelling out your name saying, hey, you know, your mom this or your sister that, and like you, and everybody else is quiet because, you know, it's like you're at a, you know, it's not many people are in the stands, and like all you hear is him. So that was odd. And honestly, that was like my first year and a half that I spent in Burlington. But from a, you know, at a higher level, I remember one of my last games I played in Chicago. I didn't have a good game at all. I pitched against the 2004 Red Sox, the team that, you know, won it all that year. You know, I think they have stories about them and stuff. I like to say that I helped them on their path, but I remember I was coming off the mound. I think I pitched like 3 or 4 innings, gave up like 6 or 7 runs, you know. And I remember I had a battery thrown at me from one of our fans, and it was our home stadium. So, you know, that's just, you know, that's the south side of Chicago for you. You know, they're very smart fans. You know, they know and they understand baseball, but, you know, there's also a little bit of violence that was there as well.
Jeez. Bro, that story you told about that guy that like did the research, he reminds me of that dude off Happy Gilmore.
Yeah.
It's like, you jackass!
You will not make this putt, you jackass. Yeah.
You're never going to make this putt, just like you couldn't get in the NHL. Yeah, jackass. Yeah, that's what that reminds me of.
Oh, yeah, he's great. That actor recently passed away, which is really sad.
Oh, that sucks. He's in Freaks and Geeks, too, by the way, which is one of the best shows ever.
Yeah, it's really sad. And I saw Adam Sandler post something on Twitter about it, like, he talked about like what a genuinely wonderfully nice guy that I don't remember the actor's name. What a wonderful nice guy that he is, and you know it's sad that, you know, I think they're filming Happy Gilmore 2, right? Or they're filmed it.
Yeah.
And I guess he's not going to be able to be on it. But man, I don't know. I hope they can do like some kind of clip or something to where like he's on there. They play his, you know, voice over you jackass. Yeah, that's one of the best. One of my favorite all-time movies, and that one of the best actors in the movie as well. So,
dude, it's so quotable. Sam and I keep mentioning Sam. People know this probably from listening to the podcast already. Yeah. Sam is one of my best friends that travels with me occasionally. Yeah. When I go play shows, he helps me. But we're both huge fans of that. In fact, my sister and I, Stacy, we could probably have recited that whole movie when we were kids. We would just watch it constantly on VHS. But we went back and watched it a few years ago, and like it's kind of like Dumb and Dumber. Like it has all those quotes,
yeah.
But bro, you can see how they've like cheaply cut from like one scene to the next. Like you could see how they've rigged things, and we're like, bro, this movie probably didn't cost much to make. Like as a kid, you don't pick up on that.
Right.
But anyways,
yeah. And I'm the same way. Like with Happy Gilmore, just movies like that, like. And, you know, like, I appreciated a nice movie that doesn't have, you know, cussing or, you know, certain parts. So, like, if you watch it on TBS, you're waiting for that quote you just love, and they edit it out just a little bit, and you're like, oh, man, you know, it doesn't hit just right. You know, like, yeah, I don't even know if they say jackass, like, if it comes on TBS or something. But yeah, no, I'm sure it was cheap to make, but, man, it's a classic. And
it's great.
And I remember you played, we were at Charlie Joe's Bar. And you played Tuesday's Gone, and you did a survey of the crowd. You're like, hey, anybody know what movie this is from? And Emily, my wife, she was like, Happy Gilmore.
Yeah. I do that a lot. I'll be like, free koozie. Yeah. It's also on Dazed and Confused. So if they yell that too.
Yeah.
They're like, free koozie for the person that knows what movie this is from.
It's in Dazed and Confused when they run out of beer at the moon tower, right?
Yeah.
Party at the moon tower, yeah.
Man, I love that song too. I love playing that song.
Yeah, it's great tune.
So, baseball.
Okay.
What age? I mean, have you always played? Did you start playing when you were a little kid, play t-ball?
Man, it's all I ever remember wanting to do. You'd almost have to ask my mom because, you know, obviously I don't remember a lot of things when I was like, you know, 2, 3, and 4. But I remember being like, I was either 3 or 4, and t-ball started at either 4 or 5, and I just threw the biggest fit because I wanted to be on a team. And so I think they like let me play just, you know, to appease me and, you know, whatever. But I remember like my first game, I think it was like at 1 o'clock on a Saturday at the Reedland, you know, the Little League fields. And I probably got up at like 7 in the morning and put my uniform on, and I was just sitting there outside my parents' bedroom just waiting on them. And like that was what I loved and what I wanted to do. So yeah, it was, and then it just kind of grew from there. I had great support system, parents that would drive me all around the country, and playing in competitive sports, and growing up around here, like sometimes it cycles around, whether it's baseball, football, basketball, or just anything. Like sometimes, like you have like talent that sometimes it cycles around. Like you'll have like 2 or 3 years, like even at like a smaller high school or something, you'll have 2 or 3 years where you're not as successful, but then you get like a group of guys together that,
oh yeah,
like 5 or 6 guys on a basketball team that all come up together and play together, and they have a really successful time. Like I was fortunate enough to have, I grew up in Ledbetter. I don't know if I told you that or not, over in Livingston County. I was fortunate enough to have a wonderful group of guys that a couple of years ahead of me, and then my brother and some of the people in his class, they were a year ahead of me, and then in my class, like there were a lot of talented guys that I was able to play with, and so we had a lot of success in high school and stuff too, like on the way up, and then it just kind of kept going on to college, and then got drafted, and just so yes, I guess the short answer to that is yes, always played.
Now, when did you start pitching?
Probably at 7 or 8, somewhere in that range.
Okay, so I mean, basically about the time they started having kids pitch, you were a pitcher.
Yeah, and I don't think I think some of the rules have evolved over time for little league pitchers, and pitch counts and stuff like that. But but back in the day, it was just get out there and pitch, rub some dirt on it type stuff. But
right.
But yeah, now hopefully they take care of their guys and stuff. But yeah.
Was it called Little League or was it Corey League?
Corey League.
Yeah, that's what we played too.
Yeah.
And you could only get 12 outs. So like the best pitcher would always pitch the first 4 innings.
Yeah.
Bro, we played this team one time when I was a little kid. I think I was like 12. And we had a decent team. We were always really good at basketball. It was like a lot of the same kids, same coach. We were decent at baseball. We would go like 8-5 or something in a 13-game season. But we were undefeated in basketball.
Yeah.
But we played this team from Hardin County, Illinois. And I'll never forget, there was a kid, he was like 6 inches taller than all the rest of us, and he had a do-rag. He was a white kid, but he had like a do-rag, this like lanky kid. And they had him at, I want to say catcher. And we were a team that ran. That's what we did. We stole, none of us were stealing on this kid. And we weren't, like, not just third base. Like, we couldn't steal second. He was throwing people out at second base. We're 12. Yeah. And this kid's gunning people down at second. And then they stuck him in at pitcher. Dominant. He was, like, striking everybody else. Everybody out. I think he had a home run over the fence.
Yeah.
So, like, in Little League, if you've got that kid, you can pretty much be competitive, like a kid with a great arm.
Very true.
Were you that kid, by the way?
Well, kinda. I mean, I wasn't like, and again, I don't know. You'd have to probably ask my mom. But I mean, I was always pretty good at baseball, but like I wasn't like dominant as a kid, or at least I didn't feel like I was. But like, I always, I had the talent. I was a pretty good hitter, pretty good fielder, pretty good pitcher. My thing was like I loved it, so I kept practicing at it. Like I would, get home from a game and throw a ball into a wall until it was dark, and then, go lift weights or go do this or go run or something. Like it was always what I wanted to do, and I felt like I just had that self motivation really. But yeah, sometimes those kids, like, you never know. Like at 12, like some kids will hit puberty really early. And then some kids will, develop later on. And sometimes that kid that, hits puberty really early is like so much bigger and so much stronger than everybody else. And sometimes they go on to they're always awesome. And sometimes, they level out and everybody else catches up to them. So hopefully that guy that you played from Hardin County, Illinois was, successful in everything he did. But,
shout out to you, bro, if you're hearing this. We don't know your name. You kind of had a buzz cut and glasses. You're tall and skinny.
That's
right.
You're
from Hardin County, and there's like 42 people from Hardin County. So
and you wore a do-rag, and you were a catcher and a pitcher. So
yeah, and we're talking about baseball, by the way.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So high school.
Yes.
Well, let me ask this: like coming up, were you playing other positions too, like shortstop, third base? Did you play positions that required a good arm?
I'm a lefty.
Oh, so you can't play shortstop. That's right.
So
that's right.
I played a lot of first base and a lot of outfield. Like it was kind of like I was first base, pitcher, right field, and it's kind of like the games after I pitch. Like your arm's tired and stuff. So sometimes they would DH and. At first base, you're not going to make a lot of throws, so they would put me at first for a game or two after I pitched. And then my brother was a good pitcher, good first baseman, good outfielder as well. Like, he was kind of on the same rotation. So it was like, and, a couple of guys, higher up, a couple of guys older than us, too, were on the same rotation. So it was kind of a pitcher, first base, right field.
I gotcha.
So, I
That's right. I didn't even think about that. When you're left-handed, there's just positions you can't play.
Yeah, and I mean, technically you can, but it's just the way that, the game works, it's the left side of the field is a right-hander's game, Like, you don't want a left-handed shortstop or a left-handed third baseman unless you can just help it, or unless you can't help it.
Have you seen those clips of Don Mattingly when they stuck him at third base?
I have heard of them. It's probably awesome. I'm sure it's amazing because he was so good.
Yeah, I think, I don't remember why he had to play over there. It might have been like a late inning thing and they just ran out of guys. But sure enough, the ball gets hit to him like twice. And so he makes 2 routine plays. But it looks so weird watching a left-handed guy throw the ball across the diamond like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so when did you, were you pretty much primarily a pitcher like in 7th, 8th grade, high school? When did you transition to being basically a pitcher anytime you could pitch?
College.
Oh, wow.
So,
okay.
And all through, so what I was talking about going first base to right field to pitcher was all up through high school. And then I went to University of Memphis, formerly Memphis State. Shout out to the Tigers. And I was just a pitcher when I went there. So,
gotcha.
Put the bat away and got, just pitched every, I was like one of the weekend starters, like they have the conference games on the weekend. So I would pitch like every, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. And the other days I just, doing charting pitches, radar gun, stuff like that. Just try to stay out of the way of the guys playing every day pretty much.
Those stuff now really that a computer would do all of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you got drafted out of college then by the White Sox?
By the White Sox. After my junior year, so I played 3 years at Memphis, got drafted by the White Sox.
Gotcha. So what kind of adjustment is it like? Is there a huge difference between college and like A ball, or is it like when you get to AA you start to really notice the difference? Like when does it start like, oh dude, this is a huge step up?
Honestly, like it's so weird because baseball is one of those things, like there's a lot of talented people that never got the chance to get drafted and go play, and if they would have probably had success up, through a few levels. So it's difficult to talk about like the talent level because, like a guy that's in college, that's a pitcher, or, if he's throwing 95, he's probably going to throw 95 all the way up through the big leagues, but so some of the guys that I played with, like in rookie ball and single A, when I got drafted, some of them were like straight out of high school, like 18, or straight from, Dominican Republic, Venezuela, a lot of the South American countries, where, they come over to play baseball, and a lot of them are really dang good. And, watch TV, you see a lot of Latino guys playing baseball. So it was almost, in a sense, it was kind of a step down to rookie ball from college because, just the amount of experience that a lot of the guys had you were playing against wasn't there. Like a lot of it was, high school and so forth. And then single A, you have low A and high A, obviously, which, there's a difference there. The biggest jump, honestly, for me was when I got called up to AA from single A. That is where you get, like, you don't get to AA unless you're, they really think you have a shot to make it. And, AA, like, guys are consistent. Like, I was a pitcher, and, to get too technical here, like, I could throw guys, if it's 1-0 and I throw them a changeup in single A, they're going to swing and roll over it or miss it or something. If I throw a changeup and it's, the count's 1-0 in AA, guys will just spin on it, because they're looking for their pitch. Like, guys are a lot more disciplined at the AA level. And to counter that, like, you have to learn how to pitch. I became a lot more consistent at the AA level. I had to learn how to locate my fastball well. I had to learn how to change speeds. I had to learn how to throw a breaking ball, when you're behind in the count. Like, all the things that you kind of, it's easy to say, but it's hard to make that adjustment if you were one of those people who, coming up, like even in high school through college and, even in single A, like, I relied on just a fastball because, you can locate it and you have a little movement, you can throw it by a lot of guys. And, when you're get to that level, AA, AAA, big leagues, like, I might have thrown 90 miles an hour at times. I pitched, anywhere from like 87 to 91 or something. That's not fast at all. Once you get to that level, that's just what people see. That's what they're used to. And so you gotta throw them off. You gotta make speeds. You gotta, change locations. And then, the hitters are smart, man. You can't do the same thing 2 or 3 at bats in a row because they'll make adjustments, like stuff like that. But so yeah, biggest adjustment for me was single A to AA.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break for me to tell you about today's first sponsor. Today, we're going to talk about Etc. Coffee House in Paducah, Kentucky. Guys, Etc. Coffee House is my favorite coffee house on the planet, and it is in my neighborhood. It is a very friendly environment. They have a tremendous product. So if you haven't been to Etc. Coffee House in Paducah, Kentucky, you need to go there. And also, they have 2 locations. So if you want to go down by the river and kind of experience old Paducah with the brick streets and just be close to the murals down by the river, hey, they got a shop like a block away from the river. But they also have one in Paducah's art district, what we refer to as Lower Town. So Etc. Coffee House, Paducah, Kentucky, 2 locations. Make sure you go there, guys. Now, back to the discussion with Josh Stewart. All right, so we were talking about, you noticed the biggest jump in the competition level was from high A to AA. And that's where guys seem to be more disciplined as hitters, and you're having to really start to think about strategy. I wanted to ask you about something I have heard, because like as a casual fan, we always think of AAA being the best level of minor league baseball, but I have heard that a lot of the prospects that are actually going to make it in the majors are in AA, and a lot of the guys in AAA are kind of the journeymen that have just gone back and forth between the majors and the minors. Is that true?
That is very, very accurate. Yeah, I mean, there's always your anomalies, like, you might have guys, in AAA that are, prospects that haven't been called up yet, but, it could be just potential where the major league team has, multiple guys at that position. And so, there's not a huge difference in the style of play between AA and AAA. But yes, once you make it to AA, they consider you a prospect, and most of the guys in AA are those, younger guys on their way up. Whereas, AAA, a lot of AAA guys have major league time. And there's a lot of people who, you might be like, if you're in AAA, you're bitter because, you're just as good as the guy in the big leagues, but you haven't gotten a shot, or this or that. Like, there's a lot of that sentiment sometimes. But yeah, it's very accurate. A lot of guys in AAA that are very good and just as good as guys that are in the big leagues. It's just, there's only so many spots on the roster, and there's only so many, different scenarios in which, you might get the chance to get called up. So it's like in AA, they're trying to make a plan for you in order to get you called up at kind of like that right moment that best fits your career to set you up for success. AAA, they kind of consider you, you're just an injury away. Like if you play third base and you're watching your big league team on TV and the big league third baseman pulls his hamstring, they're probably going to call you up. It might not be, you might not be in their long-term plans, but you're going to get big league time filling in for that, third baseman. Like, and that happens all the time. Guys get sent up and sent down from AAA all the time, and that happened to me a few times. As a pitcher, later on in my career with the White Sox.
So it's basically like an expanded. I mean, I can't think of a better way to say it. Like an expanded bench. Like with the Braves, for instance, they always have 2 catchers, but they have their third catcher who just stays in AAA, and then one of the other guys gets hurt. He always comes up for like 10 days or 15 days, and they do that with their pitching staff too.
Yeah.
This year we had like a 6-man starting rotation.
Yeah.
But that 6th spot was always up for grabs. So there was like 4 dudes in AAA that would get that spot. Just depending on what day of the week it was and if they did well the last time or not.
Yeah. That happens all the time in the big leagues. And also it's, like you said, day of the week, or, like maybe I was always, myself and the other pitchers, in AAA, we were always watching, like if there's a double header, like if the White Sox played a double header on like a Tuesday, then we know that, their pitching staff might be depleted for those 2 games. Or, if the starter up there, had a bad game and all the relievers got used up, they're looking for arms for the next couple of days. So we were all like, there's a good chance of one of us getting called up to help fill in for a while. And, while it's not the ideal reason to get called up, you get called up to the big league, so you can't complain, right? It's very nice to go up there and sit on the bench, even if you don't play. Sometimes you're an insurance policy. Like you said, extended bench / insurance policy. There's a lot of that goes on in the AAA side of things. And like I said, there are anomalies. Sometimes you'll have a guy like that in AA. Sometimes you'll have the younger prospect in AAA. But for the most part, that is accurate the way you said it.
Let me ask it this way. Where was the AAA team located for the White Sox when you played?
We were in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I think they still are. And I know they have this awesome stadium now that's downtown. But when I was there, we were down in Fort Mill, South Carolina. It's kind of a suburb, but it's a far cry from downtown Charlotte. You see some of these really cool AAA stadiums, like the Toledo Mud Hens is one that comes to mind, or some of these other really, Louisville has a really cool downtown stadium. Memphis has a really cool downtown stadium. We were down in Charlotte, and so for us, the logistics were kind of tough because you had to get that flight from from Charlotte to either Chicago or just wherever the White Sox were at that time. Some teams, I think I said Louisville, I think they're still affiliated with the Reds. So like Louisville to Cincinnati, you could just hop in your car and drive over.
Right.
Or, Memphis to St. Louis, because they're the Cardinals, you hop in your car, drive up the interstate to St. Louis. So a lot of teams will try to get that AAA team close to the big league team, but sometimes it's just wherever that opening is, and whoever you have a contract with that city that determines that. And I don't even know where the Braves were in. Their AA team was in Greenville when I played, and I don't even remember where their AAA team was.
They're the Gwinnett Stripers now?
Gwinnett.
So they're in Gwinnett, Georgia. Yeah, it's right there.
Oh, so that's one of the regions. Gwinnett.
Yeah.
See, I didn't even know that wasn't even a team when I was playing. And I just remember their AAA team was in Richmond. Back when I was playing.
They were called the Richmond Braves.
Yeah.
And they had the Rome Braves in Rome, Mississippi. But yeah, now it's the Gwinnett Stripers.
Really?
I think they've cut back on the number of minor league teams because I'm not going to remember this correctly, but there were different affiliates, and at some point the agreement changed, so you can carry less dudes in the minors now, so there's less teams. Farm system. I
heard that too, and I don't know if it had anything to do with the collective bargaining agreement. I'm not an insider anymore by any means, but back when the pandemic happened, 4 or 5 years ago, I don't even remember when it was, but that affected the draft because the draft went from 50 rounds to 10 rounds, I think. And I know it also affected a lot of the minor league teams and the cities that supported them as well, because they shut down a lot of the minor league the seasons that year. And I don't know if that played a part in it or if it was just coincidence that it was around the same time. But yeah, the way that I understand it, there are significantly less minor league teams and minor league players, so less opportunity to play minor league baseball for a lot of guys. I do understand that they are getting paid a little bit better though, so either way.
Well, that was a kind of what I was getting at. One was, how miserable is that when you're not being called up for a stint, but it's like a spot start, so you got to go from the Carolinas to Chicago, Illinois, and then go right back to the Carolinas. Like, I mean, I don't even know how you could perform, because sometimes you got to take like a red-eye flight, right? You just got to get there early in the day, show up, and you're pitching that night and you haven't slept at all. I mean, is that like a pretty miserable experience? Well,
it's hard to say it's miserable because you're getting called up to go pitch in the big leagues, So yeah, taking that for what it's worth. Yeah, the travel, just in general, is it's tough on minor league and major league baseball teams as far as that. But yes, if you get called up, most of the time though, they will. Like, one of my call-ups was to in 2004. I knew I was going to go pitch to the Red Sox, which I don't think that worked out too well. But I was actually in Richmond at the time. We were playing the Braves, and I had just had a start on like a Tuesday, and so maybe that Thursday they were like, hey, we're going to need somebody to pitch on a Sunday in Chicago. And so I happened to be the guy. I was having a lot of success at that time, and so and it was my turn in the rotation. It just happened to fit my my schedule, and so luckily I was the guy that got called up. So they sent me up a couple of days ahead of time, which was nice, to sit there and I think Mark Burley, he pitched the game ahead of me. Great guy, by the way. He pitched the game ahead of me, and then I watched him, and then I sat there and watched him pitch, and like you said, like charted pitches, and tried to learn some things about how the Red Sox hit the ball and stuff, and then I pitched the next game. So yes, that happens where you get called up or down, and you have to pitch right away. Sometimes you're just taking a cab right to the airport, and then taking a cab from the airport in your destination city and go straight to the field to pitch. And sometimes it's a little more planned, and in my experience, they did a pretty good job of the planning part, where they get you there a couple of days ahead of time.
So they don't expect you to just figure all that out on your own. Like, they maybe have somebody at the airport with like a poster board that says Josh on it or something. I mean, are you just on your own? They're like, hey man, be at the stadium by 3 p.m.
For the most part, they have travel guys. Like in the big leagues, we had a travel secretary, and I think he had an assistant as well. So they took care of all of that stuff. They would call the destination city and say like, hey, I've got Josh coming to wherever, and then they would give me my itinerary. This is your flight. This is your hotel room. Here's, a little bit of meal money, for on your way, or here's some cab money, just get a cab and do this. In the minor leagues, a lot of that fell on the athletic trainer, which is crazy because the athletic trainers, man, they don't get enough credit in the minor leagues. They do so much for all the guys and do so many things to keep guys healthy and help them heal up. And they're also, in my experience, when I was in, whether it was AA, AAA, whatever, they're the travel secretary as well, just because it falls on them. So, we had a guy named Scott Johnson. He would be sitting there, doing ultrasound on a guy's shoulder, and then he'd be like, hey, Stu, here's your hotel. It's like, and maybe that's because, they wanted to be efficient, or maybe it's not a full-time job in the minor leagues to be a travel secretary, but, kudos to those guys, because that was amazing, though.
That's one of those things that makes no sense to me. Like, so baseball in general, I love it.
Right.
I mean, my brother, I have an older brother, and from the time I could walk, like I was playing baseball with my brother, so I'm always going to love it. But there's always the unwritten rules, which have never made sense to me. Like, you're not supposed to steal a base if you're up 9-0.
Right.
So, but to me, I would think, well, if you're getting paid $20 million a year to do your job, you should try as hard as you can the whole time, unless you're trying to prevent injury. So like that type of thing has never made sense to me. And then the like absolute disregard for the minor leagues in terms of like how comfortable they're making their prospects.
Oh yeah.
Like they just don't care. And I've heard so many stories about like, man, we got to go everywhere on a bus, and then you're sleeping in the crappy hotel and you're making no money, and like 3 dudes are living in an apartment, but then you get called up for a weekend and there's catering in the clubhouse, and like, you know, guys are like massaging the dudes, and like there's like a hot tub. But then you got to go back down to AAA and you're back on the bus again. You're back in the Super 8. So I've never understood teams making that much money, why they can't just dump an extra $3 to $5 million a year into their farm system. Like, it's never made sense to me.
Most everything of what you said is accurate there. I mean, there were so many, 12-hour bus trips with, I sat next to a guy in single A. Like, we were in Burlington, Iowa, and, I sat next to a guy, his name was Casey Rogowski, great guy. Like, we would just sit there, like, we were both just cramped, because, I mean, he was huge, and, I was a little bit skinnier at the time, it was 20 years ago, and we would sit there, like, neither one of us were comfortable, but it was, we would sit there. He was a big Saved by the Bell buff, so we would do Saved by the Bell trivia for, like, 12 hours, because neither one of us could sleep. And then similar things, like in, Double A, like, I was in Birmingham, Alabama, we would bus down to Orlando, we would bus over to Raleigh, middle of the night, you've got this, 70-year-old guy driving your bus, like, through the mountains and stuff, it's scary, and it's, you either build a lot of camaraderie with the guys, or you get really annoyed with the guys, or a little bit of both. There's like a Venn diagram somewhere, where it's like, you get tired of each other, but you also build a lot of friendships and a lot of camaraderie. But yeah, everything you said was accurate, and once you get called up and you get a taste of that lifestyle, it is just absolutely ridiculous, the way that those guys are treated, and rightfully so. They're at the top of their game. There's nothing wrong with the way that those guys are treated, but yeah, it was a difficult adjustment for me. Like, the first time that I got sent back down to Charlotte, it was just, I remember the first trip that we took was to Durham, North Carolina, to play the Bulls. And this was, I had got called up for a couple of months before. Then when I got sent back down to Charlotte, we went to Durham, and we take the bus there, we get to the hotel, and I turn around and, like, there's nobody to take my suitcase for me. I'm like, I gotta, and in my mind, like, I'm not, whatever. I don't expect anything or have any assumptions about anything, but, like, you get used to being there and just, giving a guy, $10, like, hey, I'm in room 203, take it up there, or whatever. And so it was, I was in my mind, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to carry my own suitcase now. Like what a third world country this is, where I have to carry my own suitcase, right? So yes, stuff like that. And, you have roommates in the minor leagues. Like, big leagues, you're at the Ritz-Carlton in your own room, in your own suite. Minor leagues, like you said, you're at the Super 8, sleeping on a rock, and you got a roommate. There's a huge difference. Huge difference.
Yeah, sounds like the minor league sounds a lot like my life right now. Dude, I've obviously never been at the Ritz-Carlton, but I did have an experience where, I gotta be careful how much I say here.
Oh yeah.
But I was getting a discount at a certain hotel chain, and it's kind of a mid-level, like, it's not like a really nice hotel, but it's also not like Super 8. And that kind of stopped. So I had to go back to the Super 8 after a few years of not being in the Super 8.
Right.
So I just had this moment one night. Like, reality hits for me sometimes. I'm like, dude, I kind of got a window here. Like, if I don't get more success, like, like more like visibility and, notoriety, there's going to be a point where it just starts to go downhill. Like, I think about that all the time, but that was one of those sobering moments where I was just like laid in bed and stared at the ceiling, and I'm like, I'm back in the Super 8, dude. This really sucks.
You got sent down.
Yeah, I got sent down. Yeah, I need to work on my game, learn some more Morgan Wallen songs or whatever.
Oh my gosh, dude. Yeah, no, It's crazy, man. And there was something else too. I can't remember that. It was just this huge cult. Like to me, I grew up, living in Super 8s, just regular, upbringing. Shout out to my parents. Had a good upbringing, but like, to me, the true culture shock was getting called up, and just being in Chicago and being like, oh my gosh, this is how some people live.
Yeah.
But then, man, I'm telling you, man, it doesn't take you long to get spoiled. It doesn't take you long to get used to it. And then you're like, oh, yeah, well, back to reality.
So the first time you got called up, do you remember the circumstances? Like, how did you find out? And then who did you go pitch against?
Oh, yeah, I remember very well. This was in 2003. So in 2002, I had my best year ever as a minor leaguer. Like, I got drafted in 99. I did decent in 99, 2000, and 2001. 2002, things just clicked. I started in Birmingham in AA. I had success the entire year. I went to the Arizona Fall League, which is, it's like for prospects where a lot of guys go. Like some of my teammates, it's funny, like I remember them, but I'm sure they don't remember who I am. Some of my teammates in the Arizona Fall League was like Mark Teixeira. And,
snap.
Shane Victorino was on my team. There's a lot of guys that made it for a very long time and were very successful that, I was playing with and against in that fall league. And I happened to have I had a lot of success there. And so coming into 2003, I had my first big league spring training. And again, that was another culture shock. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy, big league spring training. Because I don't know how much detail I need to go into, but the minor league spring training and the big league spring training, you're in the same city, you're at the same complex, but you are so separated that it's, like the big leagues, you have one entrance, the minor leagues, you have another entrance around the side, and it's like you're not to look at them in the eye.
I was going to ask that. Do you get in trouble if you're like, what's up, Shane Victorino, or like whatever? What's up, Frank Thomas?
I think you probably would, yeah. Until you get at that level and sit with them in the same clubhouse, it probably is kind of frowned on, and you're starving over there on the minor league side, and you got to go find your own meal, and you smell the catered food that they're bringing in for the big leaguers, and you're like, oh my gosh, they're probably just gonna take 3 bites and throw the rest of it away. You kind of wish they're like, but anyway, it's kind of the same. It's a microcosm of the travel and everything else we were talking about. But so in 2003, I'd had a great 2002. I'm coming into 2003 as one of the potential 5th starters. We had Mark Burley, who I just mentioned. We had Bartolo Colon. We had John Garland. We had Esteban Loaiza. We had just signed him as a free agent. And there were, a handful of guys shooting for that 5th starter spot. And Danny Wright was a guy, he pitched, he had pitched the year before and had a lot of success. And so, he was like the front runner, obviously. And, as spring training went on, I just kept having success. I pitched against, we shared a complex with the Diamondbacks and right down the street were the Colorado Rockies. So we played them all the time. We were out in Tucson, Arizona at the time. And I remember pitching against like Todd Helton and Larry Walker and those guys. I mean, that was surreal, just being able to pitch to those guys. And, I kept having success. And so, like last week of spring training, Danny Wright, the guy I mentioned, he had elbow issues, and so I was like, oh my gosh, I'm still here. I haven't gotten sitting down yet. I have a chance. And then, but he had pitched that day in like an inter squad game or something. Said he was healthy, so I just assumed, I wasn't going to have a chance to get called up. So I was probably going to AAA, and I was just going to, wait to get my turn, hopefully. So that last day of spring training, I pitched against the Rockies. Had a lot of success, pitched like 6 innings. Things go well, but in the back of my mind, I'm thinking like, hey, I'm out here having fun. I'm going to try to make a good impression because I know I'm not getting called up. Well, after I get taken out of the game in like the 7th inning, Jerry Manuel, who was the manager at the time, comes over to me. I thought he was just telling me like, hey, good job. He says, do you have a suit? I was like, no. I don't have a suit. He says, well, you better go get you one tonight because you're coming with us. I was like, oh my gosh, like that's when it just hit me, like just I was just overcome with emotion, because I knew that meant that I was, going with the big league team. And so that night, Dave Sanders, who's a really good friend of mine, also a left-handed pitcher, we kind of played at every level. We were rooming together at spring training, so he and I, we didn't have a car. We just bummed rides off of people, and we borrowed our neighbor's car to go have dinner, just to kind of celebrate. And so that was it. And the next morning I was on the bus on the way to the airport to go to the big leagues. We played an inter-squad game against the Astros at what used to be Enron Field. What is it now, Minute Maid Park, I think? Yeah. So I watched that, and then we opened in Kansas City that year. And that's the year Kansas City won like 15 games in a row to start the season. And I think they swept us. But it was just awesome. So I got to watch all of that. And because we only played like 4 games in Kansas City, I was just sitting and watching. I was enjoying, being a big leaguer, and even though I wasn't playing. And then we flew back to Chicago after that series to play the Detroit Tigers. And we had an off day somewhere in there. And because we had an off day, and because Mark Burley was, the ace pitcher, he pitched again before I pitched as the 5th starter. So it's like he pitched the day before me, then Loaiza pitched. Then it was my turn. It was like our 7th or 8th game of the year. And the first batter that I faced was Bobby Higginson. He was the leadoff guy that year. And so, throwing that first pitch, like it was crazy just being out there thinking like, oh my gosh, like, this is Chicago, this is the stands, these are the, I had all my family up in the stands. It was almost snowing that day. It was like 30 degrees. But just, I don't know if you ever watch Hoosiers. You ever watch
the movie?
Yeah. So like there's a time when they all walk into like the state tournament. I think they're at like Butler University or something, where there's like 30,000 seats, and all those kids from Hickory are like looking around like, oh my gosh, look at this. And Gene Hackman like gets a ruler, and he's like, hey, measure the distance from here to the foul line. He's like 15 feet. Measure the goal, it's 10 feet. He's like, like those are our same measurements back at our gym at Hickory, And so that's kind of what went through my mind when I was out there. Is like, even I can't be overwhelmed, because this is the same game I've been playing forever. It's still 60 feet 6 inches to the plate. It just so happens that I'm pitching to these big leaguers, and I'm playing on TV. It was surreal, but I had to try to like step back from that, and try to just remember like, hey, it's just baseball.
Yeah, so I've always wondered about that, like knowing you're on TV. Because I always have these fantasies like, man, what if like this stuff hits for me and like I get to play like whatever. But I'm like, dude, how do these people handle it knowing they're being filmed all the time? So I don't know if I could mentally tell myself like, man, there's not like a bunch of people watching me, because like y'all were on WGN, right?
Yeah. And
so the White Sox game's a whole Chicagoland area that's a White Sox fan. They're all watching.
We were always on WGN. Sometimes we were on Fox Sports. Sometimes, depending on the game, we might be on ESPN or something. But we were always on TV somewhere.
And we got that down here. Like, I mean, in fact, I don't know. I don't have cable anymore. WGN, is that even still a thing?
I think it is. Yeah, it's got to be. But yeah, I had for my family and friends that weren't able to come up to the game. When we were playing, like, they would be watching down here. It was, I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah, I'm not sure I frequent WGN that much, but yeah, it's a thing.
You're not watching TV edit versions of the Terminator?
Renegade? What's that Lucy Lawless thing? What was she?
Xena.
Xena, yeah.
The Warrior Princess.
Yeah, the Warrior Princess, yeah.
Bro, as a kid, I couldn't stand her. Now I'm like, bro, she was hot. Yeah. Like, why wasn't I picking up on that when I was like 8? Renegade. That's great.
Lorenzo Lamas.
Yeah.
But yes, we were on TV, so yeah, I get it. And My hope for you, obviously, everybody hopes that you have all the success in the world. Like, we're all rooting for you, man. Whatever success you want to have is what we want you to have. So my hope for you is that when you get up there, you're just like, man, this is the guitar I've always played, or this is the kick drum I've always played, this is the song I've always played. So, and you just got to enjoy it, man. Put on a show. But
what's the adrenaline like? Because I've heard pitchers talk about when they're in the bullpen before they run into the game, they might be hitting like 85 on the gun.
Right.
And there's just no way to get to 90, 91, or now guys are throwing like 98, 99.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
But even when you're doing your warm-ups on the diamond, like right before the batter steps in the box, it's still not the same. But then your first pitch, you just get 4 or 5 extra miles per hour because your adrenaline kicks in when you're facing live hitters. I mean, is that true?
It's true and accurate, and I can't explain it. Honestly, like, yes, warming up versus having someone, there and you're trying to get them out. I truly cannot explain that, but that is accurate, yes.
That's crazy, man.
I don't know. I guess it's just the adrenaline, or I guess, it's not like you're, because you want to practice and you want to warm up at full speed so you're ready to go into the game. But yeah, it's there, and I assume it's the adrenaline, or just the, just that rush of being out there, just that, that competition. You just want to, if it was football, you'd want to run harder. If it was basketball, jump higher or whatever. Just, you have a baseball in your hand, you want to throw it harder, or you want to throw it better.
I sometimes, man, I don't want to get too off in the weeds here, but sometimes I think like if sports are not like a modern world version of battle, because back in the day, like your tribe, you always had to be on high alert, and the dudes had to go out every now and then and like actually straight up fight till the death. And I wonder if that's not like an instinct that we still have in us. And so now we're more civilized, we're not really doing that. But like, you've got arenas of people cheering on like their heroes and the big athletes. And so I wonder if it's not like an instinctual, like evolutionary thing. When you walk it, like that kicks in your nervous system, like, oh man, it's go time, it's do or die time now.
You know what? It very well could be. Like I said, I wish I could explain it, but I'm glad I was throwing a baseball and not fighting a lion or something.
Right.
But yeah, it's there. It's definitely a thing.
So your routine in the majors, and for people listening to this that aren't familiar with baseball, typically a starting pitcher, at least at that time, you would pitch every 5th game.
Right.
And I'm assuming most people that have listened this long into this episode like baseball, but a starting pitcher usually pitches the first 5 to 7 innings of a game, and then you have relief pitchers who come in and maybe pitch an inning or they get a few outs. Those guys pitch more frequently. They might get into 65 games a year, but a starting pitcher is going to pitch 30 at most, basically, and they pitch every 5th day. So obviously on game day, you've got a routine to get warmed up, and you're going to throw in the bullpen, and you're playing long toss with the catcher or whatever in the outfield. Yeah. What are you doing the other 4 days? Like, what kind of system are you on to get ready for your starts in the off days?
In the minor leagues, they try to put you on, like a program, like kind of a one-size-fits-all. But then once you get established and kind of, work your way up, you kind of tailor that to kind of what works for you. So I'll just talk about what worked for me, I guess. So some guys are completely different, but, like, yes, everything you said was accurate for game day, and hopefully you pitch, 7 innings. Means you had a pretty good game, right? Sometimes you pitch those 2-inning games when you're like, sometimes you might throw, complete game. But day one, you're mostly, you do a lot of running, you do a lot of plyometrics with your legs, you do a lot of stretching, not a lot of throwing. You want to let your arm heal a little bit. Day two, and sorry, that's just the exercising part. But as far as the routine goes, like, at practice and during the games, you're out there shagging fly balls during batting practice. You're doing your workouts, you're talking to the fans, you're eating the spread in the clubhouse, like, you're there. And then you sit on the bench and watch the game. It's pretty good seats to have for a big league game. And then day two, more throwing, you throw a bull. Most of the time, day 2, second day after you pitched is your time to throw a bullpen, like a practice session. So maybe anywhere from probably 30 to 50 pitches, depending on how you feel. You might be full speed, you might be 70%. You're just going through muscle memory. And then again, you sit and you watch the game. And then day 3 and day 4 are a little bit lighter. So a lot of guys will long toss on day 3. Just stretch out, just get everything worked out, long toss as much as possible. And then day 4, you really just want to try to rest. You might stretch a little bit, you might do a few sprints, nothing crazy. You might play a little catch, but everything is geared towards being 100% on game, day 5, which would be your next start. And it doesn't always work that way, but that's the gist.
Gotcha. And I'm realizing my interest level on this episode is like way higher because it's a topic that I'm like really into, and we're probably going to go a little longer, which is totally fine.
Yeah,
it's totally fine.
Fine with me.
Well, I'm kind of the mind if people are enjoying it, they'll keep listening, and whatever.
Yeah.
The interaction with the catcher. Who was the catcher, by the way, in Chicago when you were there?
There were a couple of guys. One was my good friend Miguel Olivo.
Okay.
He's famous for, I think he bit somebody's ear in the dugout when he got in a fight with somebody.
We've all done that. I mean.
Mike Tyson, yeah. But he became famous for that later. Great guy, great friend of mine. He was traded to us from the Oakland A's with somebody, and so I had pitched to him in 2002, the year that I had the kind of my breakout year, so to speak. Miguel was my catcher the whole year, or not my catcher. He was the catcher the whole year. One of, we had a couple other guys. A guy named Jonathan Aceves, awesome dude as well. So Miguel and I played together that whole 2002 year, and then he got a September call-up that year, the same year that I went to the Arizona Fall League. So, he had a little bit of experience in the big leagues in 2003, and so I was so excited that, I was going to be pitching to him because, we talked about everything that was just surreal and wild, but my catcher was Miguel, my friend. He was the guy that he knew my pitches. He knew what I liked to do. He knew my strengths. He knew my weaknesses. And so, it was just, that helped me be successful. So Miguel Olivo, if you're out there, if you ever listen to this, you're the man, dude.
Don't bite anyone else's ear off.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, he had a hint of, a little temperament at times, and sorry, man, I know we're going way over.
No, you're good.
I remember he was my friend, great guy, we loved each other, man. But I remember in AA, there used to be the biggest just arguments about what music was going to be playing, and it depending on, sometimes the starting pitcher got to choose, and so I'd always pick like Stone Temple Pilots or sometimes country or whatever, some stuff along those lines. And depending on who was pitching, if a Latino guy was playing, play like Latino music, totally cool. Sometimes it was just whoever decided they were going to just put the CD in, and I was talking to we were in the shower actually. And I was talking to this guy, somebody put on, Latin music and, a lot of trumpets, a lot of this, and I was like, hey, this is cool. I just don't understand it, if I had to choose, I would, pick something else. Miguel was a couple of showers over, he heard me. He got up in my face wanting to fight me because he thought I was insulting his music. And I'm like, bro, hey man, look at me, this is Josh. And so, we was, and he was huge, he would probably kill me. But so the next day he comes up to me and he's like, hey Stu, man, I'm sorry. He's like, I took so many greenies that day. He's like, I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, man, we're cool, dude, but take it easy a little bit, bro. But yeah, love the guy. But anyway, sorry, sidetracked. The other catcher that was up there at the time was Sandy Alomar Jr.
Oh, Lord. I didn't know that.
Amazing dude. He was quite possibly the nicest guy, one of the classiest guys, just all around, just great dude. Sandy Alomar Jr. I mean, anybody that knows anything about baseball is going to know that he's one of the, just best guys ever. Tremendous player, great family of baseball players. But yeah, so I pitched to Sandy a couple of times. I pitched to Miguel, most of the time. But, even though I wasn't pitching to Sandy that much, just having him there and just like his presence, I grew up watching him on TV. And then I'm like, oh my God, this is Sandy Alomar Jr. He's catching my bullpen, or he's catching my, I'm warming up. That part was surreal to me as well.
Yeah, he was on the 95 and 97 Indians. I'm pretty
sure. He's the one who hit the home run off of Mariano Rivera.
Oh, okay, yeah.
To win the series or something. Yeah, because that was like one of the one time out of like 500 that Mariano Rivera blew a playoff save. It was at Jacobs Field. Yeah, Alomar hit a home run off of him.
That and the Game 7 of the World Series that one year.
Yeah.
And that might be the only two. Well, there might have been a few against the Red Sox. I don't know. But, yeah, he, at 95, I think he got injured because Tony Pena was the catcher in the World Series itself.
Okay.
But, he was their primary, I believe. And then I know he was the guy at 97.
Yeah.
But, dude, yeah, that's crazy. AJ Przinsky, was he on the team when you were on the team at any point?
In 2004. So most of everything I've talked about, like my call-up story and all that, was 2003. And I spent a little bit of time, in the big leagues. I think I might have told you, Jeff Conine, when I was pitching in Baltimore, I got hit with a line drive, right in the collarbone. And it kind of knocked me out for the rest of the year, which, and so in 2004, AJ Przinsky, that's the year that he came over, and that's the year that Ozzie Guillen became the manager. I don't know if Jerry Manuel, I don't remember if his contract ran out or he got fired or whatever, but Jerry Manuel was a classy man, great man. Przinsky was there. I didn't have a ton of interaction with him, but yes, he was there.
Yeah, I was going to ask if he's as annoying in person as he comes across on TV. That dude, he played for the Braves too at one point, but he's always rubbed me the wrong way, man.
I wasn't the biggest fan, but at the same time, even though we were in the same clubhouse, I was kind of on that different level. He was AJ Przinsky, who had played for the Twins for a long time, And the Twins are a huge rival of the White Sox. Or they were at the time. I don't know. I don't think anybody was a rival of the White Sox this year. They won 20 games. But
maybe the Tillman Tornadoes might have been a rival.
Life was a rival of the White Sox this year. But no, yeah. So he came over, and so he already knew a bunch of the guys. So even though we were there at the same level in the big leagues, he was on a different level. I was rookie guy, or I don't think that, in any other setting, he probably would have been a guy that I wouldn't have cared to talk to. I'll say it that way.
Yeah.
And I wasn't the biggest fan, but the crazy thing, AJ, if you're ever listening, you're a good announcer, man. You do a good job announcing, but the crazy thing, though, is we're talking about him and how I didn't really, I wouldn't have meshed with him. Highly doubt he even remembers my name, so there's that part of it too, but I wasn't the biggest fan. I'll say that.
Yeah, I think too. His personality just kind of rubs me the wrong way.
Me too. I didn't. Yeah.
Because he seems like one of those guys. When he's in the room, it's just he's going to make a huge splash. He's got to make his presence known. I don't know. Maybe he's not like that at all in real life. But the other thing is, in the 2005 ALCS against the Angels, there was that thing with the dropped third strike or whatever.
And he ran to first. Yeah. And it really wasn't a dropped third strike, but they didn't call it. Yeah.
So I've always been oh man, and I know that that's a smart thing to do because it's on the umpires to make the right call. But I always just thought that was kind of on the same level as A-Rod screaming at that guy who's going to catch the pop up. It just seemed a little.
Yeah, I could see that. And I remember they interviewed him after the game, and he was like, what dropped third strike? I think that's exactly what he said. He's like, what are you talking about? Yeah. So
that's great.
The thing about him, as much as I wouldn't, personality-wise, I didn't care to say anything to him. I'll be completely honest. The guy liked to win, man. And so that's what you appreciate, as a baseball player. we hated him when he was on the Twins, but when he came over, like, you know, maybe you didn't like him, but he was a guy that he was doing anything to win. So take that for what it is, you know. But
All right, guys, we're going to take one more break here so I can tell you about our second sponsor for today's episode, Metropolis Music and Media. Listen, if you need wedding photos, if you need a DJ for your wedding, if you need help with a sound installation, if you want to put together your own podcast, your own music video, contact Metropolis Music and Media. Toby Glass is the owner. He is one of my best friends. He is editing this podcast, and he will do a tremendous job for you on any project that you need his help with. So contact Metropolis Music and Media. All right, let's go back to my discussion with Josh Stewart. All right, so I'm curious about the relationship with the catcher, like as far as in-game stuff. So what's the interaction like? Like, who's calling the pitches? Do you call most of the pitches? Does the catcher call the game? How does that work?
And again, I'm only speaking to back when I played. They might have more technology or more, you know, different strategy now, but basically what we would do is, you know, before the game, maybe an hour before, you know, we'd have a meeting with the pitching coach and myself, the catcher, and we'd just go over the game plan. Like, hey, you know, we're playing the Indians, you know, whoever, you know, this guy likes to pull the ball. This guy, you know, when he has a runner on base, he likes to try to, you know, hit it to the opposite field or something along those lines. And we also had guys where we were like, hey, don't let this guy beat you. You know, like if it's a, you know, big part of the game and there's runners on base, you know, it's a tight part of the game, like, you know, maybe pitch around them. You know, we might have to do an intentional, you know, just talk strategy and talk about how to pitch guys. And then it's really it was up to me and the catcher to you know, call the pitches. Like, he'll call it, like, you know, he would call it, and, you know, I had every option to shake, you know, to be like, no, I don't want that fastball, I want that curveball, or whatever, you know, I don't want a fastball away, I want a fastball in, stuff like that. And sometimes, you know, most of the time catchers and pitchers have a good relationship, and sometimes, you know, the catcher might see something that the pitcher doesn't see, like, you know, maybe that hitter, you know, fouled a ball off the wrong way, or maybe he sees the hitter kind of turning his foot, you know, maybe he's looking for something, and so he sees that and he's like, okay, we need to call this pitch. Or maybe, you know, there could have been a time where I'm like, ooh, you know, my slider is working well today, if I think it is, but, you know, Miguel in this situation would be like, dude, your slider sucks, you know, so I'm not going to call it. And I'm thinking, like, why isn't he calling my slider? Like, you know, he's sitting there, you know, he's catching the pitches, he's seeing the hitter's reaction to the pitchers. So, you know, I had a lot of trust in him and the other catchers, but ultimately it was up to me to throw the pitch that I wanted to throw, you know, because it's on me, you know, for the most part, like, regardless of what he calls or, you know, what the strategy says. Like, sometimes, you know, you're in that situation, you might have a hunch on something, and sometimes that hunch works out, sometimes it doesn't. You know, just you know, that's such as life, right? That was generally speaking how it went.
Would you say that most of the damage that hitters could do against you would be on a pitch where you missed your spot? Like, if you typically hit your spots, are you successful?
A lot of the times, yes. And again, this kind of goes into what we were talking about. Like, hitters will get, you know, from a talent wise, like, it's not like a guy like is able to hit the ball farther, hit the ball harder as he moves up, but they definitely get smarter with more experience. And so, you know, even if I hit my spot, you know, like a perfect, you know, fastball away, low and away at the knees, you know, a big league guy, if he's looking for that and he's, you know, technical hitter talk, if he stays inside it and takes it the other way, sometimes they just hit good pitches, you know, and that's part of it. And sometimes, you know, I might hang a curveball and the best hitter in the world might foul it off, and I'm like, oh, thank God. Or I might have hung a curveball and, you know, he just takes it because he's like, oh, that's a, you know, sometimes they get frozen. So yes, for the most part, if you hit your spots and you change speeds, you know, like just kind of throw off their timing just a little bit, you will have success. There's always, you know, movement. You know, the bat is what, you know, that big around. Baseball is that big around. So like if you can make your pitch move, whether it's a sinker, slider, changeup, screwball, whatever you throw, if you can make it move late, right before, hopefully before it gets to the plate, even if it's just a little bit, that could be the difference between a line drive and a ground ball. And that's what you're hoping for, is just because those guys are so good at hitting. Sometimes you'll get the swing and miss, sometimes you'll freeze them, sometimes you'll, strike them out, whatever, but you're really hoping for bad contact. Because they're probably going to make contact, and you're hoping for bad contact, unless you're a guy like, Paul Skeens or something that can just throw it by everybody.
Right.
Which he is so good. He's a phenom, but, guys like that, they're going to have a lot of success making guys swing and miss, but for us average pitchers, when I was there, my biggest hope, I could get a guy, my best combination was fastball changeup. So if I could get a guy out front on a changeup and have him, roll over to the shortstop, I was thrilled. Every once in a while I'd have a strikeout, this or that, but I loved weak contact early in the count too. What's Crash Davis in Bull Durham says, get ground balls, they're more democratic or something. I think, quit trying to strike everybody out.
So typically you're trying to get weak contact, but if you get ahead in the count, like it's 0-2, are you thinking, strikeout? Like, I'm not going to give this guy another good pitch, and I've got 4 chances to just get him to chase something.
Yes, and the crazy thing is, like, lower and lower levels, if you get a guy 0-2 in rookie ball or single A, you're probably going to have a lot of success throwing a curveball in the dirt and he'll chase it. Or maybe a fastball at his eyes and he'll chase it, stuff like that. Once you get to the higher levels, like, they'll just, they'll spit on it. They're not going to swing at that. And so there are times when it's like, if it's 0-2, instead of wasting, sometimes, they call it wasting a pitch, which I don't like. Every pitch needs to have a purpose, needs to have a strategy, but, you might throw a fastball a couple inches off the plate, or you might throw a slider, that breaks a little bit off the plate, try to get him to chase a little bit. But sometimes, I had the experience where, I would get a guy 0-2 or 1-2, and if I think that I can freeze him, I'll just try to throw a fastball on one of the corners, and sometimes I had success with that. Just, hey, try to freeze him on a fastball in. Like, I wish I could have had a pitch like Greg Maddux, where he'd basically throw it at the left-hander's hip, and it curves back over. Like, he had so many strikeouts like that, and it was just amazing. But that he would freeze guys, because they weren't looking for that. Obviously, he had a lot of movement, and he could, hit a fly, with the baseball, but. So yes, there's a little bit of both of that. You get guys to chase, or you can freeze them. Kind of just depends on the situation, depends on the hitter. If it's a guy that you've faced a lot before and he knows all your pitches, because you might, if you play the same teams over and over, like, you might face a guy 50 times in a year.
Right.
And so you're both thinking about what happened last time. What are this guy's tendencies against me? Like, it's complex, to really get into those situations.
And the thing, I guess, with trying to freeze a guy, that might be like, oh, well, he knows I'm going to try to get him to chase something here. So if I can just hit the corner, he's not even going to be thinking that.
Right.
And so this is the thing about baseball I wish people understood, like, that aren't really fans, is like the chess match that's happened. So it's one of those, like, I think he thinks that I think that he, Yeah, that's great. Okay, so you were called up in 03.
Yes.
And then you pitched for the Sox in 03 and in 04.
Yes.
And then you went to Japan at some point in 2005, is that correct?
Yes. About May or June of 2005, before that, I went to spring training with the White Sox again. I broke camp, out, and I went to Charlotte in AAA. And I was pitching well, but I was one of those guys that, I was pitching well. I had some big league experience. And this is kind of what we were talking about, like, when you're in AAA, you're kind of like the extended bench or the insurance policy. At the time, and this is after I'd been up and down a couple of times and I'd, come back from an injury, I wasn't necessarily the next guy that they were thinking about calling up. They knew that I could have success in the big league, so I could have been like one of their insurance policies. But to somewhat of an extent, I became a little bit expendable for them as well. And so, they were kind of shopping me around, and just so happens that, there's a team in Japan like that was interested, because, teams talk, all the time. And so, this team in Japan came to scout me pitching one game in Charlotte, and I just so happened to have the game of my life that day. And I think I had a no-hitter going through like 7 1/3 or 7 2/3, and so they were there scouting me, and then basically the next day the White Sox, it wasn't like a trade or anything, but they released me from my contract, and then I went and signed a contract with the team in Japan. So I played over there for the rest of the summer. So it was about 4 months.
So I am very curious about this. What was the overall experience like, and did you experience, I'm not going to say racism, but like I've always heard that they refer to like American athletes as gaijins. Like, is that true? I don't even know if that's a slur, by the way. It's just something they say. Like, I don't know if that's just like foreigner or white guy or, cowboy. Like, I don't know what that means. But what was it like over there? How'd you get treated? What was the experience like?
Overall experience, just outside of baseball, I don't think it could have been better. They set us up in a very nice apartment. We were on this little island in between the cities of Kobe and Osaka. Which probably doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people, but let's just say...
Doesn't mean a lot to me, I know that.
Kobe's about the size of Nashville, Osaka's probably about the size of Chicago. So, and then each one was about 20 minutes away. We lived on a little island in between, because technically the teams had merged, and so we had 2 home stadiums.
Oh, that's cool.
And so depending on, which stadium you were going to, you take the train one way or take the train the other way. So we were set up really well. Across the street was like the Procter & Gamble International Headquarters. And so there was a lot of like westernized stuff right around us. We had a Wendy's, we had a Subway, we had an Outback, and all that. So at home, I was very set up. Going to the field, it was amazing. Like, just riding the subway was an experience, just getting on the train with, all Japanese businessmen, school kids, everybody, and I'm sitting there, I'm the, white guy on the way to the baseball game. And so I don't know if people recognize me or not. I didn't really think about that. I didn't really care, but everybody was so nice. Everything was so clean. Wonderful culture over there. At the stadium, as part of the baseball, it was a little different. Again, the guys were very nice, but like it was just different. Like they want to keep their game, like, I don't know how to say it. I don't know the word I'm looking for, but they want to keep it like Japanese in a sense. So like they're only allowed to have 4 foreigners on their team at the time, 4 active foreigners on their team at the time.
So they don't want Toby Keith blasting in their clubhouse.
Correct.
Basically. Yeah.
Correct. So, like every team, and foreigner could be American, it could be Venezuelan, it could be just non-Japanese, right? And so, I was one of the 4 foreign guys on our team, and so we had a translator that would spend time with us and try to make sure that we got to where we needed to be on time, and kind of help translate meetings. And I think, like, I don't know that we always knew really what was going on, because I think, like, we would have a team meeting and the manager would be, he would come and say just whatever for, like, he'd talk to us for 25-30 minutes, and the translator, he would just be like, he says to play hard, fight, so it's like, thanks, buddy.
That's all he said?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all he said.
Yeah, man, the Japanese, they have long words for play hard, yeah. And I guess some of the things too, like, the way that they play baseball is really cool. The way that they approach the game is really cool. Like, I was very impressed with just their, like, fundamentals. Like, man, they are so, like, fast, and like every one of them is probably an expert bunter. Like they get a guy on base, they're going to bunt him over because they want to play the odds of getting him in scoring position.
I wish the Braves did that, man.
Yeah, and over here it's almost like, everybody's up there trying to, hit gappers or trying to hit home runs or something. Like over there, it's like, they play the team game and they do it really well. You asked about gaijin, that is a word. Like, I personally never heard it. When I got there, I was obviously, I didn't know if I was going to play 10 years there or just have the experience that I had and just play a year. It turns out that I just had the year. But, when I got there, I was hoping I was, going to be there for a long time. So I read the book. There's a book called The Meaning of Ichiro. And it talks about baseball in America, baseball in Japan, the history of each, and what Ichiro Suzuki coming over meant to both cultures and both games. And it talks a lot about that. Like, I think Bob Horner, who used to be a big Braves guy.
Oh, yeah. Big in more ways than one. He was kind of a hefty fella. Yeah,
yeah, but there's a whole chapter on him because he went and played in Japan.
I never knew that.
Yeah, and like it talks about how much they loved him because he was just a good guy that hit home runs, and like they loved him, so they might have called him gaijin. And the way that I'm definitely not a intercultural expert, but the way that I understand the word that you're saying, gaijin, is that yes, it's foreigner, but it's also tad of an insult. I think there's like an extension of it called like gaijin ginko or something that is even more of an insult.
That just sounds jacked up.
Yeah.
It can totally not mean anything bad either. But just
right. But, and I might be completely wrong on that, but I didn't experience any of that, but it could very well be that I had no idea what I was doing over there, and people could have been talking crap about me in Japanese right next to me. I wouldn't have known. So there's that, there's that aspect of it. But I loved it over there. I thought it was a wonderful country, wonderful culture, and the baseball was really good. Some people probably don't understand how good the baseball is over there, but man, they were really, really good. And it's like every game day is like a national holiday over there. Like every game that they play around, like if there's 20 teams, there's 10 games a night. They're all on national TV. They're all sold out. And it's just it's a party for them over there. Between baseball and sumo wrestling, those are like the sports that they love.
So is it kind of like the atmosphere, say, for college football in the South, but it's like that for every game in baseball for them?
I would say, yeah. The only difference is, like in college football, like, yes, if you're at a crowd of, 60,000 people or whatever, it's going to be loud no matter what, but, you'll cheer plays when plays happen, like touchdown, everybody goes wild, or, big sack, everybody goes wild. There, it's almost like a constant party. Like there's music playing in the outfield. People are just like singing songs like during the game. So it's not, yes, they're watching the game and yes, they care, but it's less about like cheering when something happens. They're just constantly, there's activities going on. There's like dances going on. Yeah, it's wild. Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of want to go to Japan now. Like, this sounds pretty dope.
It's cool, and the thing that I experienced that was weird, like in baseball we have the 7th inning stretch, which really all, it's you get up and stretch, and now I think God Bless America saying and stuff like, which is great, but like there they have a 5th inning break. Like after the 5th inning, like everybody just like takes like a 30-minute break. And it's weird because that was my first experience pitching, and I'm like, bro, like I'm getting like cold. I need to stay warm. Like, so my first couple of games, like I struggled coming back out in the 6th inning because it was like, you lost all your momentum. But it's like, the crazy thing about all of my teammates, I assume most of the Japanese ball players too, they're so healthy. They probably live to be 100. They're, eat fish all the time and vegetables. But every one of them was a chain smoker. Yeah. So it was basically like the 5th inning smoke break, more or less.
So being from Kentucky, you're like, okay, I can get with this, I guess.
Frankly, I hated it. I mean, you walk into the clubhouse, and there, here, you might have a restaurant where you can't smoke or whatever, which, I'm all about liberty. If you want to smoke, but you don't, if you're not a smoker, you don't want to walk into a room full of smoke.
Right.
And so you walk into the clubhouse, like guys are just lighting up in there.
So they're all just doing it in the clubhouse.
Oh yeah.
It's not like they're out in an alley or something.
Correct. They're not outside, you're lighting up. And so I I would spend a lot of time. I would just go hang out in like the training room or the gym, go work out or whatever, just because I didn't want to be in like a nightclub, with all the smoke and everything. So I go to put my clothes on at the end of the game, and like it smells like that smoke like when you leave the casino or you leave the club or something. So like that part bothered me. I will say that was a little annoying, but
I hate smoke. I don't like it when people burn stuff in town.
Yeah.
It just jacks my voice up. But I always tell people I started smoking like the day I quit my job, but the cigarettes are never in my mouth. So like every place I play, like, listen, if you're a smoker, just skip the next 20 seconds. I don't know if there's a smoker alive that cares about any rule that has to do with like regulating smoking. So like the whole like walk 10 feet from the door or 20 feet from the dude. Every bar I play, they'll just leave the door open. Like the smokers are like, we still want to hear the music.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I'm right by the door.
Yeah.
So I like smoke like 89 cigarettes in a 3-hour set. Yeah. I hate smoke. I hate it.
And again, like if somebody wants to smoke, hey, have at it, like. And if you were smoking right next to me, it probably wouldn't bother me that much. For me, it's being in that room that's just full of smoke that bothers me. And so that's getting to that. Like, that's what the clubhouse was like. And And for you, like being a singer, man, that's got to mess with your voice and your vocals.
Oh, it sucks.
A little bit.
Even bonfires.
Yeah.
And it's almost unavoidable. Like this time of year, I can't be like, yeah, I'll come play your festival, but no bonfire. Like I have to deal with it. One time I got walking pneumonia.
Oh my gosh.
And this was actually during COVID, so I thought I might have had COVID. It was like 2020.
Yeah.
And I just went up here to like Western Baptist or whatever. And they looked at me and the lady was like, look, you don't have COVID. I'm like, all right. She's like, you have pneumonia. She's like, but it's walking pneumonia. I'm going to put you on some drugs. And I'm like, well, can I go play my show tonight? She was like, yeah, you can. Just stay away from everybody else. And then I showed up, and it was like a 4.5-hour show, but there was like a bonfire right behind me the whole time. Oh, I was like, oh, God, that would be tonight, wouldn't it? And it was in the middle of the summer, too. That's the thing. It wasn't like it was October 15th. It was like July 20th or something, or July 10th, and they made a big fire.
Oh, and then probably the wind changes direction. It probably blows it right in your face.
Yeah, so that's, I don't know, it's just many things like that I'm not to a level where I can be like, listen, I don't want anybody smoking around me. I don't want, but yeah, I hate smoke. I always have, though, ever since I was a little kid. And I'm like you. I think people should be free to do whatever. I think maybe some things should be illegal, like say, fentanyl or heroin. We probably don't need to allow citizens to do that. Maybe there needs to be a line somewhere. But I mean, if you want to smoke. Just stay away from me when you're doing it. But anyways,
people should be free to smoke, but people should also be free to walk in a room and not inhale that cigarette.
Yeah, because I'm choosing not to smoke, let me have my choice.
All right, yeah. There's a fine balance there. Yeah, it's nothing personal for anybody, but I know that it's a touchy topic for a lot of people on both sides, which is
especially around here. I mean, I know folks that have made a living off growing tobacco. You probably do too.
Yeah.
So, but okay, so that's kind of a good transition though, because again, I went to Western Baptist, which is in this neighborhood.
Oh, there you go.
And you currently work for Baptist Health, is that correct?
I do currently work for Baptist Health. I am the director of training and support for the software that the clinics use. Like if you go to primary care or one of our specialties, I'm one of the people in charge of making sure that the physicians and the clinicians and everybody are trained and supported on the software that they use to order you that medication or enter that diagnosis of walking pneumonia for stuff like that. So there's a lot more to it, but that's the gist. So.
And I know that this got discussed in the second episode. I had the mayor on and we talked about Paducah.
Yeah.
We have two of the best hospitals in this part of the country. Literally, like in this neighborhood we're driving around in right now. I was born at Baptist. Were you born at Western Baptist?
I was, yes.
Yeah, so I mean, and I've had surgery there one time, had a hernia. Like, that's a big selling point for Paducah because one, there's a lot of healthcare workers in this area that come here, commute, or move here to work, at the hospitals or at one of the clinics. But it really is like we have top of the line medical care in this region.
It truly is. And, obviously I'm partial to Baptist. I've worked there, roughly 11 years now. And so yes, I'm partial to Baptist. There are fantastic, physicians, clinicians, and all kinds of different things, in the Paducah area. And it's kind of a regional hub, for a lot of healthcare, which it's fantastic. So, we're lucky to live in it's a relatively small town, but to be a relatively small town, we have a lot of wonderful, facilities, a lot of wonderful options where people don't have to leave, to get treatment. You don't have to leave to get that, some kind of specific surgery, you might need. So, and not only that, like, I know there's a lot of wonderful people that work at, Mercy Health now. I almost called it Lourdes, showing my age. Mercy Health or Bon Secours, whatever. I know there's a lot of wonderful people there, but there's so many wonderful people I work with at Baptist Health, like not only here in Paducah, but we're part of a statewide team. We have, and I say statewide, it's more of a system. There's facilities at Hardin, Lexington, Corbin, all around the Louisville area as well. And the team that I have just around the state and here in Paducah is just amazing. I've just, you hate to say work family, but like you spend so much time with the people that you work with, and you build those relationships. It's just, I feel blessed to be, in the position that I'm in. We talked to baseball for so long here, and like now I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, like, I sit at a desk and, I talk training software, couldn't be a farther, swinging the pendulum the other way from, doing something, like throwing a baseball and, something exciting. And, it took me a while to transition to it because, when my career ended, like I truly didn't know what I wanted to do, but, and a lot of guys will tell you, like unless you were one of those guys, making millions, which I was not, your life transition is, going to be a lot longer than your baseball career. And so, it took me a few years to, I went back to school, finished, I started at Memphis, a long time ago until I got drafted, finished up at Murray State, ended up getting my master's degree at Bethel, and then just, got a job at Baptist, after, a few other jobs and trying a few other things, and I absolutely love it. Love the people I work with, love the things I do, and just, it's definitely a transition.
Yeah, so, what was that like the first, say, 3 to 5 years after baseball was over? I struggled, to be honest with you. Part of me was a little bitter because a lot of the guys that I knew and played with were still playing. And baseball was all that I wanted to do as a kid, and, it's all I prepared to do, for the longest time. And then, it suddenly ends. And then you're kind of like, well, what am I going to do now? And so I was a little bitter. I was a little tired. There were times when I thought about like trying to be a coach. There were times I thought about, trying to, hang on. Like a lot of guys would go play independent league to try to, latch on to another team. Thought about doing that. I didn't truly know, but I was tired of the traveling. I was tired of, those sorts of things. So I was sure of that. So coaching obviously wasn't, the best option if you're in a situation like that. And so honestly, it was kind of just a reset. Like, hey, go back to school, try to find your next thing to do. And, I bounced around a couple of times. I coached high school one year, worked at the Sportsplex before it came Jackson Purchase Electric or whatever it is out there by the high school. Yeah, it used to be the Sportsplex. And then I got into software training, electronic medical records and stuff, and just kind of built the rest of my, past, 15 years or so of my career on that. But yeah, it was, I went through some, little bouts of depression, little bouts of, what am I going to do the rest of my life now type things. And for a while, I didn't really want to, I didn't even want to watch baseball. I didn't want to talk baseball. I didn't want to, it was a little bit about being bitter. And it was also a little bit about like, you come from that high of being like, hey, I was on the White Sox. I was, a major leaguer, this and that. And then, you move back to your hometown, and you're like, I'm Josh. I'm, 28 years old at the time, when my baseball career ended. And,
what am I going to do now? It was a tough transition. It really was. But luckily I had wonderful people around me and had some wonderful opportunities, and by the grace of God, I am where I am today with wonderful job, wonderful family, wonderful wife. Shout out to Emily. I think we've mentioned her a couple times on here, but
yeah, you do have a great wife. You have an awesome son. And I was going to say, man, just the way we met, I was working at Allen Music, and I was giving lessons and then doing like the School of Rock thing with the kids. And your son, Jake, was my student. And I got to know you that way. And it was just kind of later on we started talking about baseball because, you're a professional athlete and I'm a huge baseball fan. But I think my favorite thing about you, or my favorite things, I wouldn't even think about baseball. I would think about the kind of human being you are. You're a great friend. And then just watching your relationship with your son, that was the coolest thing about me doing that job, was getting to get to know the families and get to know the kids. And so that's the best thing about you, man. And you're a rock star dad. And then even with what you're doing now, I mean, I know you know this, but everybody that plays a role in healthcare, that's an irreplaceable function in society. So I know technology will change and the jobs will change inside of healthcare, but I mean, when I had pneumonia, I sure wanted to know what I had, and I'm thankful for the drugs they gave me, and all of that needs to run smoothly and quickly and efficiently. So what you're doing now is extremely important. And then also, you've told me this just on several occasions, or I've seen it on your Facebook, how much you do love your coworkers.
Oh yeah.
And every business is the people business. Every business is. So even when I was teaching guitar lessons, that was the people business. When I worked at the Dippin' Dot factory, I was packing ice cream for somebody.
Right.
And just as your friend, and I just hope you realize that what you're doing now is every bit as important as anything you've done in the past. But then the most important job you have is being a friend and a husband and a dad, and you're knocking that out of the park. So
well, I appreciate that, and try to make a couple of points to what you're saying. Yes, we met because of Jake, and it was just so serendipitous and just such a wonderful passing in time that you were teaching lessons at a time that my kid was becoming interested in music, and you had such an impact on him and such an impact on me, because Wednesday nights, I don't know if you remember, Wednesday nights was our lesson night for the first year or two, and that was just our time to come down there, let's go see Corey, and he was always so excited, and I don't think he realized the impact you had on him, because he has wonderful support from me, his mom, step parents, step families, aunts, uncles, cousins, too many to mention. But you had such an impact on him, and you showed him, you taught him so many things musically, but also he looked up to you so much, and I'm sure he still does, even though he might not admit it now.
Yeah, he's at that age now where we're not cool.
Yeah, he's just whatever. But yeah, you had such an impact on him, not just him, but all the other kids, and even the bands that you were doing and stuff. So like I think we said before, we all wish you the most success. I hope to see you on the getting an award on TV, and just whatever level of success you want, that's what we want for you. But just looking back, man, the impact you had on all the kids and all the parents of those kids, man, it's priceless, and it's timeless too. We're still talking about it, 10, 12 years, from when we started becoming friends and doing lessons and stuff. And then I appreciate what you said about the human being thing, man. I've had so many so many things where maybe I wasn't the greatest human being, or maybe wasn't doing this or that, but life's about experiences, man, and the road you take is what makes you who you are. So I'm not proud of a lot of the things, situations I've been in or things I've done or this or that, but I'm blessed to have wonderful people around me, and blessed to just be able to do what I'm doing, and to be here and hopefully make an impact. And frankly, here recently I've just been getting more involved in the Players Association, like the MLB PA, like we go and we do clinics and stuff, and I've gone to a couple of like Emily and I have gone to a couple of outings at like the Busch Stadium or at the Cincinnati Reds ballpark, where you go and you meet former players and stuff, and it's really fun to like talk experiences and stuff, and just because a lot of guys like me had a little bit of time in the big leagues, and you transition into life, and it's fun to just talk about the old times, and it's also fun, like, got to give a shout out to a couple of nephews, Adam and Nolan. Man, Nolan, I know you know Nolan. for those of you who don't know Nolan, and a lot of people listening to this probably will, like, Nolan he's the true rock star, man. You need to do a podcast with him. He is he's a senior at Massac County this year. And he is just the most wonderful guy. He has Down syndrome. He is in all kinds of, Special Olympics. He does all kinds of things. He plays with the band at football games and basketball games, and he just has a lot of wonderful people around him. And I think, and for those that don't know, Corey played at mine and Emily's wedding too. And Nolan was the life of the party there. And then Adam, his little brother, man, he got all the sports genes, man. Like Jake got all the music genes, which they're recessive genes because I sure don't have them. But Adam got all the sports genes. He's a heck of a baseball player, football player, basketball player, and everything. So it's fun to just go and sit and be the uncle and just watch, But at the same time, like, sometimes I just think like, hey, I'm just the uncle. I work at Baptist Health. I'm here to watch. But and this is me probably not being aware. Like, do people see me when I show up and they're like, hey, he's pitcher of the White Sox? Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes I don't think about that. Like, and for the longest time, to be completely honest with you, like, I didn't want to think about it. I was trying to life transition, and now it's kind of like, yeah, I'm proud of it, and if I can share an experience or do something for somebody else that's helpful, then I want to do that. And so I feel like I've missed some time trying to find myself there, but now it's like I want to do whatever I can to help people out.
Well, you're a great man, and like I said, I appreciate your friendship. You've been a really good friend to me, and
likewise, brother. And
we have mentioned your wife. I do want to tell people. This man found a woman who's just as into sports as he is. She attends every Cincinnati Bengals home game because she's from like kind of the part of Kentucky that's more like Cincinnati, like sports fans.
Elizabethtown, yeah.
So, how phenomenal is that you meet a lady that's like just as into sports, if not more passionate about some of it, than you are. So Josh is living the dream. He's got a son that's a guitar whiz who's majoring in music at one of the best music colleges in the country. And then, I met his soulmate, and she's just as into sports as he is. So.
And we love to come see you play whenever we can. And she might have a drink and sing along or try to sing over you at times. So
that's a lot of people. So. That's fine, man. That's fine. All right, bro. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the pod today.
Man.
And yeah, we'll have to hang out soon, man.
Yeah, brother.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. I want to thank you for listening to today's episode. I want to thank my guest again, Mr. Josh Stewart. And that was a lot of fun for me today. Josh is one of my really good friends, so it's always nice to just be able to hang out with him. But some of the stuff he talked about today, I've never heard him talk about. So it was really cool to have that discussion with him. Real quickly, let me tell you guys about next week's episode. I will be talking to Mr. Levi McDuffie. Levi is one of the owners and baristas at Etc. Coffee House in Paducah, Kentucky. Now, I mentioned Etc. earlier in the episode because they were our first sponsor for today. It truly is my favorite place to get coffee. I miss it when I'm on the road. And this discussion we're going to have next week is going to be very fascinating for me because I have a lot of questions about the behind-the-scenes, day-to-day activities of running a small business, such as a coffee shop. But I'm also curious about the process of making coffee. I pretty much know nothing about it. So if you would like to listen to that and learn about what it's like to own and operate a local business, specifically a coffee shop, make sure you tune in to next week's episode to hear Mr. Levi McDuffie. All right, guys, I'm about to sign off, but let me just end by saying I'm Corey Evitz, and even though I am not a rock star, I live a pretty rock and roll life. Peace, guys.